Alright, so if you're buying a home, you either need to sell your current house or you might be renting, but let's just say that for the purposes of this discussion, you've got that taken care of. So you're starting out, and the first step is to talk to me, talk to a realtor. That's step number one. During our initial meeting, you should be expecting to understand the whole process of buying in more detail that we'll get into today. We'll talk about strategies that will save you time, money, and stress when you do find that house, and figure out what the next steps are to get you from here to finding a house. So once we get together and we agree to work together, the next step is going to be for you to talk to a lender. You can do these two things in parallel. And talking to a lender does two things. Number one, you figure out that the purchase price that you have in mind or that you are comfortable with matches with what the lender is willing to give you, unless of course you're buying for cash. Number two, it makes you ready to put in an offer. There are different types of approvals from lenders. Some help us compete with cash buyers, others just mean a regular pre-approval. But at the end of the day, the lender will need to review your documents, your income, your assets and debts and so forth, and essentially say, yes, I'm willing to give you a loan for X amount, plus your down payment. You can go and put in an offer on a house with this maximum purchase price. Of course, nobody's forcing you to spend all of that money unless you want to. It's your choice. But without that pre-approval, no seller in Bay Area is going to consider and entertain an offer from a buyer that doesn't know if they will or will not get or qualify for a loan. So that's an absolute must. You actually lock in the lender and the rate for your mortgage when you get into contract. So once you get the lender's approval, then you start shopping. It's not a good idea to be looking at houses before you do this, because the worst thing that can happen is you'll fall in love with a house and not be able to buy it. And then spend the next half a year chasing after a house that you didn't buy in the first place. It's just a big no-no. It's a really big emotional roller coaster, and I wouldn't want you to go through that. So we go shopping. During the first weekend, we would have talked about what kind of a home works for you during our initial consultation. I can start looking at homes off market, coming soon, what's on the market. So we find your house. We identified a house, we write a contract, many strategies there, separate conversation. We get into contract. Let's call it day zero of a transaction. A typical transaction in Bay Area right now is anywhere from 20 to 30 days. It can be shorter, can be somewhere in the middle, depending on what your lender is able to do. 30 days is pretty standard. Anything less than that is typically considered more competitive. But let's just, for the purposes of our discussion, let's assume it's 30 days. Day zero, day 30. Transaction. Now within the transaction, you might have some, you'll have an appraiser come out to evaluate the value of the property to make sure that what you're paying for it matches with what the bank thinks the house is worth. Because at the end of the day, if you don't pay your mortgage, the house is like collateral for the loan, so the bank will take your house. So they want to make sure that it's worth what you're paying for it. That process is called an appraisal. Usually, competitively, it takes between 7 and 10 calendar days to get that done, competitively. Again, lenders differ. Within the same period of time or so, a lender needs to reevaluate your file, maybe get some updated bank statements and so forth, depending on how much time has elapsed between when a lender talked to you initially. Nothing unusual should happen during this process, but they need some time. And if there's an HOA involved, they need to reach out to the HOA, make sure that the HOA is not being, the homeowner association is not in litigation, make sure that they have no red flags as far as how many units are rented, how many are owned, and so forth. They do their job and their due diligence. At the end of the day, a lender blesses your loan. Loan. So at that point, they validated everything, you're good to go essentially. Now, somewhere at the beginning of the transaction, or depending on what the market is doing in the Bay Area, you need to look at the seller disclosure package, inspections, reports, and so forth. In the market we're in today, that's typically done before you write an offer. If the seller doesn't have inspections and reports available on the property, we can have what's called a contingency, time that's allowed for you, the buyer, to complete inspections, investigate the property, and make sure that you're comfortable with what you're buying. So that's usually a couple of days. It happens at the beginning of a transaction. The point is, there's a lot of stuff that goes on over here, and then we kind of sit back and wait. On your end, not on mine, the lender's end, of course, but as far as the buyer is concerned, a lot of stuff happens over here, and then you kind of just like hold off. So day 30, this is what we call close of escrow, COE, close of the transaction. Another word for transaction is escrow. So close of escrow is when you, the buyer, officially become the new homeowner. You start paying your mortgage, start paying your property taxes and your insurance. Now, if a seller was living in a house and we negotiated what's called a rent back at the beginning of the transaction, it would allow a seller to continue living at the home for up to 60 additional days before you get your keys. This period is called rent back. So sometimes sellers need to find their replacement property before they're able to get moved, but all of that depends on the nuances of a specific transaction. All of that gets negotiated and talked about over here at the very, very beginning. You become a homeowner, you get your keys over here. I should probably do. This is when you'd be able to move. drive, essentially. So anyways, let's call, this will be your move-in date. Here you go, fixed. And then once you get your keys, you can do whatever you want. You can schedule any repair work, you can schedule remodeling, you can move in right away. That can happen only after you get your keys. So there you have it. The process of buying in a nutshell. For more information, call me. I'm at 650-409-6542. Thanks for watching and see you next time.